Well, hello, everybody. This is Laverne Fuller with the Fuller Effect. First of all, I want to say Happy Easter, everybody. I know that we're all quarantined with the COVID-19, but I hope wherever you are praising the Lord and enjoying yourself because guess what? We don't have to meet in an assembly in order to love God and cherish the fact that He gave His life for us and rose so that our sins can be forgiven. We can do that from anywhere. So I just want to say Happy Easter again. I hope everybody's healthy, happy, got enough food to eat, got enough money going on. And I'm praying for everybody. So, guys, I wanted to come on to talk about the Clark sisters, first women of gospel, or I'm sorry, first ladies of gospel. I watched the movie last night. As a matter of fact, I watched it twice because I thought that the movie was so very powerful. It was done very well. And I'm going to tell you what I loved the most about the movie. What I loved most about the movie was the honesty, was the sincerity. I love the fact that they allowed us to see that people who love the Lord have normal lives like everybody else, and they go through normal things like everybody else. Somewhere along the way, we've gotten into this thing of believing that if you love the Lord, you're perfect. And that's so far from the truth. Because listen, if we were perfect, we would not need to have our sins to be forgiven, right? He wouldn't have had to die for our sins because we wouldn't have any, right? So I'm so glad that they allowed themselves to be transparent. And I wanted to talk about a few different things in the movie. So first of all, this is about Maddie Moss Clark and her daughters, her 5 daughters, and their journey in the gospel world. And as you all know, Maddie Moss Clark was a singer in her own right. If you remember opening up the show or in the middle of the show, in the early parts, they were hiding her gold records under the bed from her husband because her husband did not agree with her recording. And we'll get back to that in a minute because there's a lot of things to look at with that. I'm going to try to go succinctly. We'll start off with the fact that in the introduction, Miss Moss was getting the girls up out of bed and having them come down and sing. Well, one of the things that was not accurate in the movie is they showed her turning on a tape recorder. Now, from what I understood in watching other interviews, I heard Dorinda say that the reason the mother got the kids up is because in writing the songs, she did not have a tape recorder. Therefore, she needed to teach the parts to each of the girls. And she would take the girls with her to teach these songs to the choirs. So, and I don't know anything about writing songs, but whenever you're a writer and you write songs, stories, books, anything, inspiration will come to you right away. And if you don't have some type of mechanism to put it down or jot it down, you will lose it. It can be a funny moment that gets you a whole song. It can be a word. It can be whatever. And so now today we have our phones and recorders on the phones and things like that. But in that nature, in that time, it was a little bit different. Everybody didn't have tape recorders in their home. Those things might not have been in your budget to afford at that time. If you're taking care of family and trying to feed them, that was a luxury to have in your home. So her being a writer, she had to find a way to put this together. And if you know anything about her history, she was one of the first people in the gospel world to kind of really cement the harmonies. She was really big on the harmonies. So if you would say, well, what kind of parent is that to get those kids out of bed to sing? A parent with ambition. A parent who knew that she was hearing God and needed to capture what God had given her so she could pass it on. So that is the reason that she got the girls up so early in the morning or any time of night to capture what she was hearing. Now, we also dealt with the fact that she was a first lady, but she was a first lady that traveled. And so that meant that in order for her to assist in um, earning money for her household, she could not always be there. So that left the oldest daughter, Jackie, to be in charge quite often. She took Twinkie with her quite often because she saw that Twinkie had a gift in playing the keys. And in order to train her, she took her with her so she could learn from her. Well, if she's always on the road, if she saw that, she literally did have to take her with her in order to train her um, for the greatness, for the greatness that Twinkie wound up having. Now, also there was a conflict, and I'm probably going to jump around a little bit here. There were so many key things in the movie, so many statements that were made. It was like aha moment after aha moment after aha moment. So it was like, wow, I jotted a lot of them down. Um, you got to think about. I want you to go back to the time frame in which this was. This was centered around 1963, but then you have to go back to when Maddie Moss was a younger woman. First of all, she was in the Kojic Church, Church of God in Christ. Very strict rules and regulations about the Bible. Women did not wear pants. They didn't wear makeup. There was a lot of things that you just did not do. As a matter of fact, they did not allow women to preach. They didn't agree with that either. And so her music opened up some doors for her. But you still had a lot of men that had a lot of rules and regulations. So the way she carried herself was scrutinized far greater than anybody else. Than I should say than the men were. Standing out ahead of her husband became an issue. Now, this is an issue from yesterday and today. This is something that people need to take a look at. During that time, this had been her second marriage. And probably like a lot of people who I've been married before, I don't want this to fail. I'm in the church. I don't want to look any kind of way. She probably took a lot more abuse than, as we would say today, I wouldn't take that. But growing up in that particular time frame, I was born in 1966. And I remember in that cusp, it was not uncommon to see women go into the restroom on a Sunday morning and kind of remake up to cover up the bruises where they probably had been beat up right before they went to church by their husbands. Some of their husbands, deacons and pastors, they were right there worshiping, that they just beat them down or slapped them in the car beforehand. I myself came out of a household with domestic violence in it. And you often wonder for the women, you say, well, why didn't they leave? Well, there's a lot of different things. Sometimes women did not necessarily have anywhere to go. And collectively, what I mean by that is when these women thought, they thought in a whole. They didn't think just about themselves. They thought about their children and what that would do to their kids' lifestyles. And sometimes they were willing to take the abuse and try to keep as much normalcy for their children as they could, and they just took the abuse. But there came a point where she traveled so much that she couldn't be there for her husband. And what he said to her is, "You're of no use to me. I'm sorry, you are useless to me." Wow, what a stinger. You're useless to me. You have to be so very careful when you're choosing your mate and you feel like you're moving in what your gifts are that God gave to you. If you're not with someone that can support your dreams and aspirations, there will be conflict back then and even today. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be conflict because eventually it's going to be a tug of war. It's kind of like choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. Am I going to love you more than the gift that I know that God put in me and the greatness that I can be? Or do I turn my back on what I believe God put in me just so that I can be with you, or as I would say, grin in your face? And here's the thing. The person that's not getting the first attention in your life, they become a little disgruntled. But you got to know that when somebody is moving and what they know to be a calling that God put on them, there's a fire, there's a passion that burns in them, and nothing is going to stop them. Nothing is going to stop them because you can't see what they see. And it's not for you to see what they see because God didn't give that to you. He gave it to them. And it's for them to walk out. They have such a relationship with God. They hold hands with God and they move on. And sometimes something is going to fall by the wayside. I remember in my early 20s, I used to do my music and I was in the studio. I was writing and doing the stuff that I was doing. And I was dating this guy. And he was like, well, I like you a lot and I can see us getting engaged, but you're always busy. He says, and I'm on scale to where I think by the time at the end of my career, I could see myself making about $100,000 a year. And my response to him was, so you're asking me to limit myself. You're asking me to settle for your dreams when what God gave me is $1 million ideas. Now, I wasn't being rude. I liked the dude a lot, but I loved myself more. And whatever it was that God had for me to do at that point that I felt he had for me to do, this thing of being up in your face, that wasn't going to cut it, dude. I like you. I like you a lot. I enjoy spending time with you. But right here, right now, I see where the rubber is going to meet the road. And there's going to be some conflict. Lots of conflict. Because where I want to go and the thing I got to do and the time I got to take to get there, you have a problem with. If you're with a person who does not have any dreams or their dreams are very limited, there's going to be a problem eventually, somewhere, sometime, some way, someday, because while you're constantly going after something, they don't have anything to do but be mad at you because you don't have time to be in their face. Now, there's nothing wrong with them. That God just didn't give them the level of ambition that he gave you. That doesn't make them wrong. That just means that their dreams don't meet your type of dreams. But these are the type of things that you got to sit down and talk about before you say, yeah, I'm down for whatever, for however long. Because trust me, if it don't come out in the wash, it's going to come out in the rinse. And eventually, where they are running around grinning, saying, hey, this is my boo, this is my so-and-so, I'm so proud, I'm with this person. Behind the scenes, eventually, they will secretly despise you and they can't help it. It's almost like a jealousy. It's almost like when you say I got to go after this, it's almost like you rejected them. And it's not your intention to reject them. You just understand that there's something bigger and better that God put you on assignment to do. And in order for you to meet what he told you to do, I can't sit here like this, I cannot commit to Tuesday, Thursday, every Saturday at 3:00. I have something to do. And I'm accountable to God for squandering the gifts that he gave me. And so it's one of the things. Also, during that time, everything was so strict in the church. So very strict in the church. Women had to walk lightly. And here was this woman saying, I'm not going to let you hold me back. I am about perfection. I'm going to do the best I can. And notice she never strayed. You never heard about her trying to go to the world. You never heard her about her trying to be a secular singer. She said, I believe that everything God gave me, I can do it in his name, under him, and I'm not going to let you stop me. I.e. becomes the conflict because now you've got people who are saying, God didn't tell you to do that. What y'all singing like God didn't tell you to do that. What they sang off of Stevie Wonder's music, oh, that's an abomination. No, of course not. That's a good. Anyway, so because you don't know what God told her. The one song that really kicked it off for them was based off of a Stevie Wonder song, because God is all music. God is all love. God is all creation. They turn it around for God. And that became one of their biggest hits. And this crossed barriers. It allowed them to reach people who never was going to church, because church was so stuffy and so judgmental. It allowed them to do something to bring people to God that never would have come. It allowed them to reach people that never would have listened, because this music was enough. If I can catch you, if I can get your attention, then I can get you to hear me. And maybe if I can get you to hear what I'm saying, I can maybe make a difference in your life. Now, here's the conflict. The conflict is Maddie Moss saw something in her children, not just her. She clearly saw something in her children that God had for them to do. I've heard people liken her to Joe Jackson, but I want you to understand something too. Maddie Moss Clark raised the greatest woman's gospel group in the world. Joseph Jackson raised one of the greatest male groups, any color, in the world. There had to be some sacrifice, and there's a level of excellence. See, and back then, they weren't as lenient as they are now. See, I remember growing up in the church. I went to People Baptist Church, and we had a choir director by the name of Shirley Ann Lee. And early on in the choir, there was two things she did. You could not get away with not singing out because you were little. She didn't play that. She did not play that. You either sing up or get out. If you came to rehearsal to play, get out. So when we first started doing rehearsal, we rehearsed in Miss Lee's house. So we would meet at the house. We would go to the corner and march from the corner store all the way down the street into her house, line up like we were in choir, and sing. If we were clowning that day and we're not serious about rehearsing and getting to the next level, she kicked us out of her house. Call your parents, tell them to come get us, because I'm not fooling with y'all today. Because this is serious. This is about God. And you're not going to bring half step into God. If you're going to do this, you're going to do this right. There was an excellence there. So to see Miss Moss throw a shoe, that was not uncommon. We were throwing out somebody's whole house if we came to play. It was serious. Every time you step up in front of God to represent God, this thing is supposed to be serious. This is not for play. Did nobody come see you? You're supposed to give God your best. It was about excellence. Right now, today, we have so many mediocre entertainers. Why? Because they don't want to rehearse. Why? Because they think because somebody knows their name that people are going to be enthralled. Half the time we want to turn off the TV and the radio. You go to concerts, they don't have shows prepared. They just got 12 or 13 people running around on stage, and you're trying to figure out why are they there and who is paying these clowns. Why are you wasting your money on this? Why? Because they do not prepare. Why? Because there is no standard of excellence. You will never be the best that you want to be if you're not willing to put the time in it to be the best that you can be. See, let me tell you something. God will give you a gift, but then you got to work that gift he gave you. You can't decide, oh, I'm cute, I'm funny, whatever. I'm just going to stand up there. You're going to wow nobody but yourself. If you can dance, you got to rehearse. Why was Michael Jackson the best dancer you ever saw? Because they said late at night he couldn't sleep. He all night long, all day, practicing the steps to try to make it the best he could, singing. He didn't just say, I'm Michael Jackson, I can sing. He worked at it night and day. There was a fire burning in that young man like nobody else. And he knew that God gave him something, and he was responsible to be great. Joe knew when he saw those boys that God put something in them to be responsible and to be great. And there's a funny thing about a parent who knows that their children have something. Now, they got a choice to make. Do I allow you to be mediocre just so you can be happy? Or do I push you because I know that in pushing you, those are going to be some hard times. Your life is going to be so much better for you. You're going to be so much more fulfilled. Your work ethics are going to be off the charts. That's the difference. Maddie Moss Clark did not accept anything less than excellence. As a matter of fact, if you weren't trying to be excellent, she took it personally because she knew that to be the best, and it wasn't even about being the best, it's about giving God your best. If I love you, God, and I want to be there for you, you don't walk up to God all raggedy. Yeah, God, I'm gonna give you what I got left. No, that is why back in the day it was such a big deal to dress up for church. It's not it, yeah, part of it was wanting to be seen, but also part of it was these people worked hard all week and they did whatever. So the Sunday best, that's where it came in. Today is my day. I'm giving my day to God, and I'm going to be my best. I'm going to clean up my best. I'm going to go be my best. I'm going to praise my best. And so you didn't just walk in to serve God like you walked into the 7-Eleven to pick up a soda. You put some effort in it. You put some time into it. It did not mean that you were judging other people, but you also looked at people and said, hey, you know what? When you come to serve God, put something into that. Don't just walk up in here any kind of way and just it's supposed to be okay. Now, they say when you know better, you knew better. So the connotation was this: okay, when you first were new in church, come as you are, because you knew you got to learn. But once you get in there, you need to have enough respect and love for God that you want to give him your best. You don't just roll out of bed in your jeans and your t-shirt that's not ironed and come on, yeah, God, whatever, let me give you that. That's why relationships break up right there. You don't want to take the time to give your mate the best you have. You want to get up there. Oh, I've been around you. I've been good to you. Yeah, I'm happy about you. Whatever. You won't wash your face. You won't put on no makeup. You won't comb your hair. You won't run in place. You won't try to look better. Even if you gain weight, that don't mean you can't fix yourself up. You want to give that person a little piece of whatever you have left and expect them to accept it, but then still feel important, like they're important in your life. It doesn't work that way. Whatever is really important to you, you will put an effort into. Whatever is really and truly important to you, you'll put an effort into. Is it a relationship? Is it a career? Whatever it is, you'll know by where your passion goes, by where you spend your time, by what you take time to put into. You can't tell me you're excited about me and you don't call and you don't come by and you swing by real quick and you don't even take time to make yourself look nice. You're not trying to find out what movie can you take me to. You're not looking for a nice little restaurant. You're not even trying to say, hey, can we go to have an ice cream cone and walk in the park? You're not putting no effort in me. But then you say, I'm wonderful, I'm special to you. Yeah, you can get that to somebody else. I don't want your wonderful, special in that way. And I think God feels the same way. We wonder what's wrong with our society. What's wrong with our society is there's nothing special anymore. And we tend to criticize those who put forth the extra effort. The first words out of our mouths is, it don't even take all that. But it does take that. It takes something to be something great. Now, here's the thing, too. Because Maddie Moss knew that she was hearing God and her children didn't, you still have to look at this as a woman working in ministry and children who don't know where they are yet. So even though they love what they did, they found their mother to be strict to the point where they felt like they didn't have a life. There's this thing that we always tend to desire what it is that we don't have. We always tend to desire what it is that we don't have. If I'm a really thin woman, I desire a woman with bigger breasts, bigger behind. If I'm a woman that's thick and whatever, oh, wish I was 10 pounds smaller, just can't seem to get it right. If it's a woman with long hair, Halle Berry had the cute cut, they're not looking at me. If I'm light skinned, it looks like they like the dark skinned girls. It's something about our human psyche that we always tend to not be totally okay with ourselves. And we always look over there, that we always seem to want to believe that the grass is greener on the other side. And because we believe that the grass is greener on the other side, we can never quite settle into what God gave us and be happy with what God gave us, because we think we're missing something. And I get it. These young ladies were traveling around the world being the greatest singers ever. But they didn't have a personal life. They didn't have personal lives. If you notice, almost each and every one of them married somebody from the church, except for Twinkie. Because they were so busy in the church, that's the only place they really could meet people. And most of the guys that got in church fathers were deacons and pastors in the church. It's kind of like they were acceptable in that particular circle. And back in that time frame, it was really, people really had standards to a point where it was a little crazy. I remember I had a girlfriend, and she had dated this guy through high school, and he really liked her. She was beautiful. He was really attractive. But, you had to meet the mama test. So his mother finally invited her over to dinner. Now, I will tell you, her family had more money than his family. But in that social world, there were other things that they were looking at. So she went to dinner, and I remember she had on a beautiful burgundy crushed velvet pantsuit. And she was so stylish. But when she got there, his mother was not pleased at the fact that she wore pants. She felt that this young lady had disrespected her home by walking in pants. He was not allowed to date her. They waited, fast forward years later, maybe 5, 10 years later, they are married today. But he wasn't allowed to date her because she came in with pants. During that time frame, that was considered to be disrespectful. That was considered to be unsaved, unlearned. You were basically considered to be a heathen. If you notice what Maddie Moss did when Jackie came to the door with the pants, she then sniffed her and she said, well, if you're wearing pants, you're probably smoking reefer. That's how serious that was, because they only equated that with not living up to what the word of God says. There are rules that have been set that you need to follow. And if you're going to break one rule, you're going to break them all. You know how they're saying, if you lie, you'll steal, you'll kill. It's just a trickling effect. So now, if you're not willing to worship God and bless God as a woman and walk around in pants, I don't know what else you're going to do. I don't know what else you're going to do. There also has been a lot with Denise and her behavior. And I'm going to tell you how I saw Denise. I saw Denise as a young lady who just wanted to kind of live her own life. She was tired of always living for the world. And I am one of the watchers of Larry Reed Live, the blogger, and he's done 4 interviews with Denise. And so in her own words, as she was saying, is that, listen, I wasn't willing to give up my children. That's why I left the group. I was tired of being judged. Now, you have to go back to the date and time. We had just came from a time that was even crazier than that. When my mother was 16, she got pregnant with my oldest brother. In her time frame, when a young lady got pregnant, they no longer could even associate with the other young ladies of their age, period. You could not hang out with them. You could not go out with them. You now are a woman. You have to deal with older women because you now pregnant, have a child. So fast forward, I graduated from high school in 1983. In 1983, I remember fighting with a teacher because a young lady was pregnant. She did not want her to be able to walk across the stage to graduate. She felt that it was an abomination and an embarrassment, and they were not going to glorify this young lady by letting her walk and graduate. They felt like she was just trying another way to be seen and to encourage the other young ladies to have sex. Okay, so let's be real. People have been getting pregnant for a long time and things, but back in the day, we just lied more about it. So what was not uncommon is if a girl got pregnant, either she ran off and got an abortion or she went down south with the family. So when she went down south with the family to visit the grandparents or whatever the case may be, she either had the baby and gave it up for adoption or left that baby there for some other relatives to take care of. Then fast forward 10 years later, where did this child come from? Likewise, When Pookie and them got in trouble and went to jail, they always moved out of town. Generally went down south. We were not forthcoming Christians. We spent so much time trying to make our lives look like what we wanted to be, as opposed to being honest about we were all human and we all had flaws. So we spent so much time judging others when we had a speck in our own eyes. But that's the way that it was back then. It's still that way now, but it was way worse back then. It was way worse back then. So you had young ladies that loved their sister, but you heard them say, she can cause mama her seat in the church by her behavior. Well, now, and that's something that they'll have to work out, because I kind of understand their mindset, though they were wrong. You're supposed to love your sister, don't care what, but they felt like she was clowning. Come on. We all have siblings that we think, oh, Jesus, can she just sit down? Seriously. But you have to learn to get past that. But also that mother had some control over that too. Like with Jackie. See, this thing about extra children in the home, or stepchildren. Now, in my household, my mother taught us that the only steps that exist in life is the things you get on to go from one level to another. These are children. If this woman had all these children, they're not steps. These are her children. You want to say half brother, half sister, all of those children belong to her. So Denise constantly fighting with Jackie, saying, I'm the first original Clark sister. That was wrong. That was wrong. But there's some underlying issues there that they need to work through. But she should have been stopped long before that. Likewise, it's clear that that was kind of the temperature in that home, because when Jackie called the police on Mr. Clark, what did he say? How dare you call the police on me? You're not even my child. So there was always a temperature in that house about all the kids not belonging to both parents. Now, that's not uncommon. My father's family, oh my God, they're very big on the brothers not married women that had children already and that sort of thing. So much so to where we have a family educational fund for college. But part of the rules of that educational fund is if you married into the family or you were adopted, you are not eligible. You got to be a full blood, as far as they know, Madison in order to be able to partake of this. Now, as ridiculous as it sounds, that's just the way that it was. And they took great pains to remind people, oh, that's not his child, but they're there raising them, not looking at what you do to these children and the psyche of it all. But see, that was for the people there, to adults, to stop that foolishness. It's gotten much better now because we have more blended families. But back then, you basically wore the scarlet letter on your back if you had kids. And even though everybody was doing it because we wanted to look important in the church, we acted like, oh no, not me, them. And also in the church, you got to remember, until Barack Obama and Michelle made it to the White House, the only place a Black woman was going to be a first lady was at the church. And they would do anything and try to live any kind of way and play all these games just to have that status, because to them, that was the status. To be in a ministerial group was an elite group like none other. And that is where they were going to find their place, their importance, their ability to look down on you and things such as that, because, oh, you're minister so-and-so, your pastor so-and-so. It automatically puts you in a particular group. And for children, you couldn't be your normal selves. Children in that day snuck and did everything. They do now, but not nearly as bad as they did then. Covering, sneaking out of windows, doing whatever to do what they needed to do, because it was important to show up in church, to sing in the choir, to usher on the usher board and live that life and then leave and do stuff. And when I get in trouble, our parents took a whole lot of time to try to cover it up so we look blameless and shameless, though we were living just like everybody else. I'm so grateful that they took the time to be transparent with this movie, because what I saw was a woman who loved her kids, loved her family, loved the Lord, was not willing to compromise. Did it cost something? Yes. But generally, when you go after what you truly believe in, if somebody's not on the same page with you, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. It is. So you have to make up your mind. Choose ye this day whom ye shall serve. And you better be ready to be strong with it. Because, lady, if you think you got something that God has just sent you to do, you might miss out on that dude you really like. But you got to say, so do I give up what I believe God put in me and run after this guy, and then I'm going to resent him years later because I never went after who I wanted to do and who I really wanted to be? And then, okay, so now then if I run after this thing and I'm not quite right, then I'm alone and he's over there and he's having a good life with somebody else and I'm here all by myself. There is no easy answer. Either way you go, there's going to be something. I looked at Twinkie. She spent most of her life doing everything everybody told her to do. So how did she wind up getting rid of her catalog? Because for once in her life, she wanted to feel like a grown-up and make her own decisions. She wasn't prepared for life in the way that some of us were prepared for life. She was prepared. She knew the gospel world. She knew the music world. She lived in the gift that God gave her, and her mother protected her from that. So the first time a really nice guy, good looking guy came along and made a big deal out of her, she ran for it because she was a normal woman. She wanted that like everybody else. And because her mother kept her so enclosed or so close to her, she had to fight to get it. Denise fought to get it, but in a different type of way. Denise felt like Twinkie got all the attention and she didn't get any. Everybody's looking, and this woman is trying to do the best as she can to make a way for her entire family. No matter what you do in life, I'm not sure we ever make the best decision. If I work long hours to take care of my family, then my kids feel neglected. If I sit here all in their business, then we don't have the things that we need. It's a balancing act, and I don't know that we ever really get it right. We all just simply try to do the very best that we can to make it. Now, during COVID-19 and everything that's going on, people who had good jobs 3 weeks ago don't have them anymore. People who didn't ever worry about bills and worried about their savings, how they're going to take care of people. Domestic violence, I'm sure, is high in the home now because of all these various things where we could get away from each other, where he could sneak out and see his mistress and all that other goings on. He got to stay here with you and constantly point out your faults. There's going to be a whole lot of divorces when this thing is over, or a lot of relationships that come together and strengthen, and a whole lot of COVID, Corona, quarantine babies born. And those are the names. I guess what I'm saying is, no matter what you do, all you can do is your best. And if you're doing your best and you're trying to live the way God told you to live, I think that's what he wants us to do. I think we got to stop judging one another. We got to stop judging one another because our best is never good enough. You know what I'm saying? If I'm the greatest singer in the world, but she need to lose 25 pounds. So I've got the best shape in the world, but she dumb as a box of rocks. There's never, ever a perfect answer. When you sit back and look at your childhood, and again, I'm so grateful that they were so transparent on this movie. I want you to look at your parents differently. Try to understand where they were at the time and how they did the best they could with everything that went on. Because I got a choice. Where you think your parents were too strict, they were trying to give you the best that they had to make you the best that you could possibly be. I remember my father was a pastor, and I remember when they had a little club called Nirvana's, and it would be Sunday night at 6 o'clock to like 10. And he used to pick up all the kids and drop us off and pick us all back up and drop us off at home. And they used to say, Reverend Madison, but you're a pastor. Why are you letting your kids go to club? And he said, because God called me, not them. Sometimes we do want our children to exist in our callings, but God called you, not them. Now, you are responsible to carry yourself in a certain manner, to respect your family and your household. But then, too, you also have to be open enough to sit and talk to your children and share enough with them to hopefully that they get enough of something out of you to make them the best that they can be, but also allow them to be themselves. I think in the end, Maddie Moss caught this because, if you remember, she gave Jackie a pair of pants. Because she started to understand that what you wore had nothing to do with how much you love God. We all are trying to do the very best we can to be the very best us we can possibly be. This movie was called The Clark Sisters, the First Ladies of Gospel. And I'm so excited to have seen the princesses of gospel and the queen of gospel and what she gave to them that made them the greatest. There's no one who can turn on the radio or hear some music or hear those voices and not know Karen and Dorinda and Twinkie right away. Twinkie is one of the best keyboardists out there, period, hands down, secular or gospel. You got to give a little to get a little. This life ain't easy. There's going to be bumps and bruises along the way. But if you trust God, He's going to make it all right in the end. We'll cry some, we'll laugh some, we'll love some, we'll lose some. But as long as you put God first, He's going to make it all right. Well, you know what I like to say? I'm going to do this. I'm Laverne Fuller with the Fuller Effect. I love you with the love of the Lord. There's nothing you can do about it. Be safe out there. Be safe. Love one another. Don't go out if you don't have to. Listen, if you're somebody out there with nothing to eat or need medication, hit me up. I don't have a lot, but I bet you I'm willing to try to find a way to help somebody that needs it, because that's what we're charged to do. Y'all be blessed. Take care.